All right. We are getting started here. Ooh, I don't think I've spoken out loud yet today. Let me take a drink here. I should have practiced some voice lessons before we got started. Okie dokie here. Let me just check a couple things. So if you can see and hear me, I'd love if you popped into that chat box. Tell me where you're from and what you have going on today. All right. Okay. Perfect. All right. So, welcome everyone who is watching live as well as all of you watching in the replay. I know that not every time works for everyone, but I do appreciate those of you who are spending time to talk a little bit about our new workbook today. So just to kick things off, if you are not familiar with me and Simple Scrapper, I just want to give you just a tiny little taste of what we're all about. My name is Jennifer Wilson and I am your guide here at Simple Scrapper. In 2008, I created this community as a way to explore my own scrapbooking in more modern, fun, and simple ways. I wanted to find out what all the options were today, and of course, they've even exploded beyond what they were a decade ago. But I wanted to have a hobby that would allow me to get my photos documented in ways that really, really worked for me. And over the years, we've just built upon that in order to help you figure out your best way to scrapbook in ways that fill you up, just fill you with joy and fun and laughter, and just make you feel good, and also fit your life so that they're practical, so that you can finish the projects you start and start more projects that you always finish. So that's what we do here, is that we don't tell you how to do things or what to do. We share how we do things and give you the tools that you need to customize and personalize this hobby so that it really works great for you. And that's really what this workbook is all about. So I'm so excited to dive into that today. All right, so what we're talking about is our new Scrapbook Your Way workbook. And if you've not downloaded that, you can find the link right below this video, wherever you're watching it. You can go to simplescrapper.com/workbook to download your free copy of the workbook. All right, so what this is a tool, and here's a tiny little sneak peek, and I'll talk about the formats in just a second. What it is a tool, it's a workbook, it's a guide, it's a way to have you check in with your hobby once a year, once a season, and even on a monthly scale. There's even this thing called the anytime audit in there that is kind of your master refresh. If you were going through a slump, you're feeling blocked, you're feeling frustrated, it's this magical tool that you can use to start moving forward again. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But perhaps more importantly here, what this isn't is I don't consider it a planner. And some of you who've already given me some feedback have said, oh, I love this, thank you, you've read my mind, and I love this planner. I consider a planner to be something more like this, that has dates in it, that tells you what you're doing when, and it's more about the when. It sets the date, the time of the day, when you're going to do something. And what I want you to do in your regular planner is to put down scrapbooking date with myself, or live crop with the Simple Scrapper members, or in-person crop with my best friends. That's what you put in a planner. You put what you're going to do and when. And this tool is really about going deeper in that what. And how do you figure out what it is that you're going to do in that time that you have blocked away for scrapbooking? Because every time you sit down to scrapbook, you've managed to carve out some time, whether it made it onto your calendar or not. I want you to know what you're going to work on next. I want you to know what your priorities are and what is going to both, as I said before, fill you up and fit your life. So this is all about narrowing things down so when you sit down, you know what to do. And that's also what we're all about here, is to help you find that efficiency and that productivity so that getting started is easier and so that your hobby stays fun. Because this is a hobby, but sometimes, maybe a lot of the time, we can get in our heads a little bit, and that's a natural thing to do. We start thinking about all the photos we haven't scrapbooked, all the supplies we haven't used, and we can get a little fuzzy and blocked. And all of that, the fun and excitement of playing with pretty papers or moving pixels around on the page, that can get a little bit lost in that overwhelm of the so muchness of our hobby. But when you have something that you can turn to, that is when some of those feelings go away, because you've got that one thing that you're going to work on next, and you can see yourself making progress. And I'll show you how we do that in the workbook a little bit later too. All right, so we've got lots of folks here. We have Marion is watching at work. Thank you. Sonia's babysitting her 5-month-old. Yvonne is coming from the Netherlands. Audie is coming from Denmark. And we have Natalie here coming from Canada. So we have quite the international group here tonight, or today. And I'm so thankful for those of you watching, and of course watching in the replay. I've been waiting to do this one for so long, as we've geared up for this workbook launch. Okay, so there are a couple options here for you, and we're all about options because we know that not every format works for everyone. So the digital copies of the workbook are free for everyone because I really want to get this tool into as many hands as possible, and I believe this is something that can transform how you approach your hobby and how you feel that sense of progress and purpose in your creativity. And so we have a digital copy, and I've printed mine out here. It's 8.5 by 11 standard US letter size. What I actually did is I took that cover page and I printed it borderless on my photo printer, and then just used my regular printer to print the insides. And the free version has the PDF that's all fully designed for you, nice fonts and everything. And then we also have a Google Doc version, because I know not everyone likes to print things out or likes to write by hand. And so the Google Doc is something that you can copy to your own Google account and then fill in by hand while typing. So everything is compressed because it's going to expand to whatever you write in it. So you'll see little boxes for all the different spaces, and as long as you type, those boxes will keep getting bigger. So that's just another option for those who prefer an electronic format. And if you use tools like Asana or Trello, you can even link that workbook into that digital account so that you can access it super quickly to keep updating it. And the benefit of the digital version as well is that you can copy sections, use them again and again. You can start over. You can add your own sections in there as well. And there's a similar benefit to the printed version as well, as you can even add extra pages. You want to add, an extra anytime audit, print one out and put it at the end. And then of course we have the pre-printed version. So yes, you have all of the content in the digital version, but if you'd like a professionally printed version sent to you by me, then you can order this. And it's in a nice compact 5.5 by 8.5 size, sturdy cover. It's not gonna get too banged up throughout the year, and it's portable so that you can tuck it in your crop bag if you're going somewhere. You can take it to the dentist appointment while you're waiting for your kid. It's not super bulky, so it's something you can just tuck away and work on as you want to. And one of the reasons I picked this size is because you guys saw my Erin Condren planner before, and I wanted my workbook to be able to fit into, can you see this? Here, let's see. I wanted it to be able to fit into this pocket in the back of my planner so that I could keep it handy with my planner, but then again, I can have it separate if I want as well. All right, and so this one, the base price is $18 to have it shipped to you. This is a pre-order at this point. We'll be shipping the first batch in mid-January. We're anticipating opening pre-orders once a season rather than shipping continuously. And I'll explain why more than that in just a second. And in the United States, it is free shipping. We have international prices right now listed for Canada and Australia. If you are in another country, you can contact me and I will add a price for your country to the checkout form. I couldn't predict all the possible countries to start with, and of course all those prices are going to be different because of shipping costs. All right, so that's the formats. We've got lots of options, and in a second here we'll switch the camera and we'll dig into the guts here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about my workbook, and then we'll kind of go into how I see you using each section along the way. But we will pause here to see if there are any questions you have so far. I'm super excited to answer anything that you may have before we switch the camera. So I want you to be able to see my face in that process. All right, so I'll go ahead, while I'm waiting for any questions, I'll go ahead and give you the sneak peek about the quarterly thing and why we're anticipating shipping quarterly. So for everyone, what we're going to do is we're going to have a quarterly or seasonal webinar where we talk about what's different about this season and invite you to dig back into your workbook. The sections in here are kind of, there's an annual section, there's a kind of a kickoff section, an annual section, a seasonal section, and then a monthly section. But the benefit here is that it's completely undated, so you can start at any time. So if you're watching this in March, you can get started. It didn't start back in January. Everything is completely undated, unmonthed, so that you can start when it's convenient for you. Or say you end up skipping a month, you can pencil it in the next one. No big deal. So it could, yeah, it's totally convenient for you, and that was super important to me. Sonia asked, will this replace refresh? No, not at all. So the webinar will take place in the first month of each quarter. So our first one will be in January, and we're going to call that one Simplify Your 2019. So I'm really excited for that. Now, some of it will be a little bit of repeat for this particular one, and then we'll do it again in April as kind of a spring cleaning theme, and how can we clear out the cobwebs for the spring, and we'll invite you to go back to your workbook then. And then later, in each of those months that we have the webinar is when we're going to have our Refresh member retreat. So Refresh is a 7-day online retreat for our member community. And each day we have some specially curated activities to help you get creating, to think more intentionally about your hobby, go a little bit deeper into your whys and your motivations right now, and to just set aside time to create in a way that's really invigorating and motivating. And we kind of think of it as your refresh for the season ahead. So every season you get an opportunity to start fresh so that you have motivation and energy to scrapbook for the next 3 months. So it will not replace refresh at all. I see this as a kind of an important underlying component to what we do inside of the membership, but this is not replacing it all. And of course, the whole workbook is free for everyone. All right, we have Beatrice also here from Germany. We have M. Gordon from La Jolla, California, Garden Girl from Massachusetts, Beth from Alabama, Nancy from Maryland. Oh, fantastic. I love seeing so many awesome faces here. Thank you so much. All right, let's switch the camera and we will dive into the guts here. Okay, all right, there is my desk. We have some cable clutter here. Okay. Okay, so first, I just want to briefly show you this version. This is the printed PDF. And so I have to give a couple pieces of context here. One is that this printed version is a prototype. We did a sample run this past month for an in-person retreat that I hosted, and the contents, most of it matches, but there's a little bit of formatting differences. So for example, you can see here, we've got a new title page where you can put your name and date. and a letter here, and a table of contents. And we don't have a table of contents in this printed version yet. But the printed version we get in January, it will match exactly what you see in the PDF. So I just wanted to give you that context. The structure, though, the materials, that's going to be exactly the same. Same size, nice satiny cover, super, super durable, with pages you can write on inside. So that will be the same. All right. So just to talk a few minutes here through this one, and then we'll dive into my answers that are in my printed copy. So as I mentioned, we've got a title page here where you can write your name in case it gets lost or your neighbor has the same one. And you can put a start date and end date. As I said, this is undated. I didn't want to say this is for 2019. I wanted you to be able to say this is what I'm starting and this is what I'm ending for whatever time works best for you. We've got a little introductory letter here and the table of contents. I wanted you to be able to, there's page numbers throughout. Ooh, is it going to focus? We got white, too much white on white here. It's so, my camera does not want to focus. Hello. Do we need to do, there we go. Okay. So there's page numbers throughout, and the table of contents helps you jump to each section that you're interested in. So to kick things off, take my Bulldog Club here, we have the creative download section. This section is designed for you to empty your brain. This is essentially everything you know on a high level about your scrapbooking hobby. And being able to get that out of your head and onto paper makes it more real and allows you to take action on it and make changes where needed. So got some questions there. And then we have the Your List section. This is one of our most popular tools we've had in the past. It allows you to add projects that you want to finish, projects that you want to start, and skills or techniques that you want to learn. And then we have the Yearly Review. This is where we say, okay, for the past 12 months, what's worked well, what didn't work well, and how do we want to go forward for the next 12 months? So I'm going to show you my responses to those inside this version of the workbook. All right. All right. And I share these because I want you to see a couple things. One, that this is not a precious piece of stationery that you don't want to write on. I want you to scribble this up. I want you to write all over it. I want you to really make it yours. I want you to think it's special for what it contains, not special for how it looks. And I know there's some of you out there that's really hard for, because we take pride in how things look. And if you're like me, you have all the stationery that you hoarded from your childhood that you never wanted to write on because it was so beautiful. And that's not how I want you to treat this. I want you to scribble it up. You'll even see I messed up here, so I marked it out. No big deal. And I also want to share some of my responses so that you know that these answers are inside you. It's thinking about the question and writing what comes to mind. This isn't scrapbook journaling. It's just jotting down notes and responses that you can refer back to. And as you go through the prompts, you'll see how they allow you to, how do I say this? Each question builds on the last. The more you do it, the more things come out. And I'll share in a little bit one of my big aha moments from that. We did a question here. Is there in half size, a 5.5 by 8.5 version for download? There is not. We just have the full 8.5 by 11 size for you. All right, so when did you start scrapbooking? I started scrapbooking in 2008 because it helped me cope with a huge transition in my life. I moved across the country, started a new job, got married, moved in with 2 stepsons and a large dog, and I'd never had a dog before in my life, let alone children. So it was a huge change, and becoming a scrapbooker was how I coped with those changes, processed them, and saw all the good and felt gratitude in my everyday. And to this day, I see my scrapbooking as a gratitude practice. What page or project are you the most proud of? 100%, it's my Before Your Story album. This is a class we have inside of our Simple Scrapper membership, and it allowed me to document my birth to adulthood story. So, from birth to age 31, approximately, in one single album with not too many pages. I used only about 100 photos, and I know that I'll never be able to totally catch up and scrapbook all the stories of my life, but it helps me feel caught up and gave me that permission to move forward on my adulthood years, and I don't feel that strong compulsion that I need to keep going back anymore. So what does simple scrapbooking mean to you? To me, and this is really what I see for Simple Scrapper, is it means whatever it feels easy and fun for you in that moment. And that's going to change over time. Sometimes I want to go crazy and I want to punch holes in the middle of the page and back them with paper and use my paper piercer and put brads in and use fibers and just go all out. And that's what feels fun and easy in the moment. But there's a lot of times where I want to stick things in pockets, or I want to do a small size layout with a tiny photo and write a lot of journaling. What feels fun and easy changes over time, and being more in touch with your process helps you figure that out. And so when you think of simple is what works best for you. It's not necessarily a style, type of product, a format. It's whatever works best for you and what feels fun and easy. All right, what types of memory keeping formats do you enjoy and not enjoy? And I did some X's and some partial X's. So for example, I put an X on paper layouts because that's my favorite right now. But I put a half X through everything else because I do enjoy dabbling in other formats. I also put a half X on the bottom between on digital layouts and project life because I'm probably feeling the least excited about those at this moment. But there's none that I just find that I don't enjoy at all. I'm kind of a dabbler in lots of different formats. But that's going to be different for everyone, which is why we have this question here. And when you can identify, for example, you know what, I just don't like pocket pages. I don't really like project life. And sometimes you may feel you need to whisper that because everyone else is doing it or doing whatever format. It's okay to say, that's just not for me. All right, now we're going into your list section. If you've been around Simple Scrapper for a while, we've invited you to make these lists a lot over time. And what I find this does is it helps when your brain feels a little bit cluttered, like I don't know where to start because I have so much that I want to do. You can empty that from your brain and release that weight by putting it down on paper. Yes, there's multiple unfinished projects that I have, but I know that I can only pick one at a time. I can only have one in focus, and that's okay. But I know that they're here, and so I'm not going to forget them. So that releases that weight of trying to keep that information in your brain. All right, we've got a couple projects here that I want to start. I want to do that Before Your Story album for my husband, but I have a little light bulb moment for that later that I'll share. And next year I know that I want to do a Week in the Life project and a December daily project. So I like to think ahead and know what things might come up so that when new opportunities that maybe I'm not even thinking about now, such as a class that I might want to take or a new project idea that I come up with, I can be thinking ahead and knowing, oh, well, this thing's going to come up soon. Do I want to start that now or do I want to wait or not do it at all? It's all about making choices so that you're not filling your plate so full that you get stressed out and end up not doing anything. And I mean, that's just a good motto for life in general, but those same skills that you use to apply to what goes into your regular planner and what happens in your life, you need to apply those to your scrapbooking so you don't get stressed out and you can actually enjoy your time. All right, any skills or techniques you want to learn? I want to get more proficient with editing in the Lightroom app. I manage all of my photos with Lightroom, but I don't feel like I'm very good with editing with the app so that I really enjoy how the photos look back on my computer. So I want to learn more about that, read more about that, and practice my editing skills. All right, so that was the download section. That's the first part of the workbook. This is the first thing I recommend you doing. And then maybe in your next session, a week later, 2 weeks later, jump into the yearly review. And this is where you reflect on the year past and then think about the year ahead. So it goes a little bit deeper than the first section. So what's worked well for you over the past year in your scrapbooking? For me, 100%, it was doing a 6x8 layout album with mostly 6x8 layouts in it. I absolutely love the size, and I'm definitely continuing next year. The smaller size pages meant there was less pressure, like less design pressure that I need to figure this out, and therefore each page came together faster. And perhaps even more importantly, the album could sit right on my desk all the time. It was never in the way. I never ended up putting things on top of it. So it was just very, very convenient to keep working on. So I've had the most success in terms of keeping up with annual scrapbooking with this size. All right, so what didn't work so well this year? I didn't work on a lot of older projects this year. And I know part of that is because those big 12x12 albums can't sit on my desk easily. But also I found that I was so engrossed in my 2018 scrapbooking that I couldn't make that mental transition to another time period. So I'm already thinking of these light bulb moments of what happened, and I'll share those next here. And then what stands out as a light bulb moment? That's an aha moment. That's oh yeah, that's it. Like what transformative idea shaped your scrapbooking? And the answer was, if 6x8 works for me, I don't have to do anything else. That's totally my choice. And, I have to give myself the same permission that I encourage you guys to give yourselves. And so I'm definitely going to be doing 6x8 again for 2019. And that's my choice, and that's okay. And that's how I do scrapbooking. All right. So it says, I think that might be Rhonda, still having focus problems. Yep, I'm trying to keep it flat here so it stays focused, but it's hard because every time I move my hand, it wants to focus on that. So we'll do our best here. Natalie also says, I'm definitely a huge supporter of the new rules of scrapbooking. So this is my book that you can find on Amazon. Scrapbook the way you want at the moment, not feel the pressure to scrap how you used to, and definitely not how everyone else is scrapbooking. Thank you for saying that. That's just so important to me, and I'm hopeful that this workbook helps you implement the new rules, helps you really find how to personalize that and embrace doing things your own way. All right, now we have the year ahead. And so I have some instructions here because the next page is this big calendar. So we have spaces for 12 months here. What I want you to do is write those months in, and then the first step is to write down what personal activities you have going on. So when are you going on vacation? When do you have work travel? When does your partner have work travel? What is going on in your life that may influence how much time you do or do not have to scrapbook? So you can see here I put no school for summer break at the top there. Summer is a hard time for me because my daughter's out of school, and even though she goes to camp part of the time, it's always a bit of a juggle, and I just don't have as much time to edit photos or scrapbook them, despite the fact that I'm taking probably twice as many over the summer. So that's something that I always need to keep in mind. And then the next stage here is to write down what projects you want to work on. For example, I started in December here, and I know that I'm going to be doing December daily in December and into January when I finish. I also know that I want to do that Week in the Life project. I'm not sure when Allie Edwards is going to host it, but it might be May. And I know that next November, I'm probably going to want to be prepping my December daily for next time. And this is when I was working on this calendar is when I had my big light bulb moment based on my responses so far. Is that yes, I really want to work on my husband's Before Your Story album, but this is a busy year. We're hosting a conference in Pennsylvania in May. He's traveling a lot. I honestly don't see that project happening until he retires, which is going to be in the next year or two. But I can figure out maybe how can we simplify it? How can we get started? How can I change my expectations to make it more practical, even if it ends up taking more time? But I wouldn't have gotten to that mental point have I not gone through this workbook. All right. Now this is about this year. First off, we asked, what do you want to change about your scrapbooking in the next 12 months? So I wrote, I want to have one clear focus at a time. Maybe like a monthly focus, maybe I alternate, but I don't want to always be working on just the current year's photos, that's kind of what I gravitate towards. So I want to say, okay, this is what I'm working on now, and some of the time that's going to be past projects, some of the time that would be new projects, and some of the time that's going to be scrapbooking 2019 photos. I also want to spend more time creating just for fun off camera. So I hosted an in-person retreat just recently, and I commented to my guests that it was so fun to not feel like I was being watched while I was scrapbooking, because you guys know I do most of my scrapbooking here on camera, either live or recorded. And so I want to do more where I'm just scrapbooking just for the fun of it and nobody's watching me do that. So not everyone's going to have that problem, I understand. All right, now we have, how does scrapbooking fit into your personal goals? So I have 2 goals for next year. I both want to live slower and hustle harder. And those might seem at odds, but I want to have that ebb and flow. I want to have periods where I'm being intentional and slow and really being quiet and introspective and feeling like I am moving purposefully throughout life. But I also know that I need to work hard. I have a lot of things that I want to accomplish. And so that I need to find more focus when I'm hustling. I need to find clarity in doing the things that really move the needle the most, so that when I'm doing both of these, I have that freedom, I have that more space and time to scrapbook and really enjoy my life with whatever I want to do, whether that's scrapbooking, reading, or other things. So, and I put this in here because I think it's important to figure out, where does scrapbooking fit into your life? How does it fit into the things you want to accomplish? And you might find some synergy and you might find some conflicts. And by thinking ahead, you'll know, how do I want to work through those? What do the goals that I really have, how's that going to impact my scrapbooking? And will achieving those goals impact my scrapbooking? So things are all related. And I don't want you to look at your hobby in complete isolation. All right. So that was the end of kind of the getting started section. I'm going to jump into the questions here, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the rest of the workbook. Because one of the things that I love about this tool is that it's not a one and done, but it's also not something you have to look at every single day either. It's a tool to keep returning to over time. All right. So Natalie asks, how do you find peace with changing your expectations when sometimes there are many competing priorities and projects that are all deemed important? How would you choose your top 3? So I've shared a variety of ways of doing this over time, and she says, with respect to putting off before your story project. Well, the first thing I would do is, as you said, it's about changing your expectations, not necessarily changing the end result. That in order to do this project, I might need to start with just the worksheets and talk to him and start getting things down on paper before we can really jump into the scrapbooking part, before he can do any journaling. Because obviously I can't do the journaling for this project. And so, let's see here. I'm going to change the camera back so I can answer this question properly here. So, there we go. At least you can see half my face. So it is about finding peace between those expectations. And I do that in a couple ways. Also, I will think about kind of finding a bit of everything, like making sure I'm doing something that's fun, making sure that I'm doing something that's productive, and making sure that I'm doing something that's important. So the fun thing could be, like, I've made a photo book about everything that I ate over a period of 5 years. So that was a fun book to put together. And I love having little fun things that I can work on. Productive would be maybe working on the current year's photos. This year I was super productive. Yes, it was fun along the way, but I feel so good by how much I got done. And then the important thing would be, what can I do to move forward on that big project? Whether that's doing any scrapbooking or just doing the prep to get ready and spreading that out over time. So I would try to balance doing a little bit of different types of things so that you feel like your different buckets are being filled so that you can move forward. And those may not all be important projects, but if you're not having fun along the way, then you'll never get to the important projects. So it's all about kind of moving back and forth between those spaces so that you can keep moving forward. Because if you only work on priority, important, this is, what I want to have for my legacy, those are probably not always going to be the most fun, because there's going to be harder stories there. There's going to be things that are more complicated that require, as is in the case of my example, talking to someone else. And so you got to have that other fun stuff in the middle there too. So I hope that's helpful. And of course, we can always talk more about how you make those decisions. And that's something we love to do inside of our member community, is taking one person's problem and then we tease it apart, share lots of ideas, and help them find their own solution to go forward. All right, so let's fix the camera here. Okay, turn that one off. All right, so going back into the workbook, and again, the big PDF copy, same content, slightly different formatting. The seasonal roadmap section replaces our seasonal roadmaps that we released this past year. We've simplified things, cut it down to what's really, really essential, and that starts with, what is your number one personal priority? And this is where we continue to emphasize what's going on in your life. What is it that's important to you right now? Because that's going to impact the time and energy that you want to give to your scrapbooking. And it doesn't have to be the same throughout the year. You might have bursts of productivity that are buffered by bursts of energy in other areas of your life, and that's okay. So then we have a check-in of what's been working well. What might you need to let go of? What do you want to accomplish in your scrapbooking? And how do you want to hang out at Simple Scrapper? And how can we support you in achieving all of this? All right. So that's that seasonal check-in. So there's 4 of these, one for each quarter of the year. Doesn't matter when you start. So there's 4 of those so that you can check in with us. And we're going to be having those webinars to remind you to check in, to really think about what's going on in your life and how is that going to impact your scrapbooking. All right, those are the seasonal roadmaps. And then we've got the Scrapbooker's Journal. So I really like this section. So what we have inside the journal is we have monthly pages. And I intentionally left these very open so that you can use your preferred format. You can divide it up into boxes. You can create lists. You can doodle. You can do whatever you want. But I see this as the place where you're going to keep track of what's going on in a month, what you want to do. Maybe you're going to use it to write down memories, what's going on. Maybe you're going to do it to write down the next 3 layouts that you want to make. Maybe you divide it up and you do all of those things. Here, I did a little pen test. I just wanted to show you guys, you can't use Sharpies in this particular paper, but I wanted to, it does bleed through a little bit, but all the other pens I tried were just fine with no bleed through, which tends to be the case with Sharpie on a lot of things. So we have 12 months here that you can use to start anytime and keep those notes. And then we have one of my favorite sections. And I hope you put like a little flag or a little bulldog clip or whatever you need to so that you can jump to this page easily. Because this is where you can keep track of the number of layouts you've created and any milestones that you've had. What have you completed? What's going on for you? So when you do this, this allows you to keep celebrating those small wins, because it could be, I finally scanned those photos. I finally finished my December daily from 2 years ago. I started working on those worksheets with my husband for his Before Your Story album. So I want you to keep this running list of victories throughout the year so that you can visualize and actually see your progress. Because the tangible evidence of that progress is probably going to be spread all through your craft room in different albums, because you're going to be putting those layouts away and tucking them on shelves or sharing them as gifts with others. So when you keep this victory list, that's your visual representation that I'm making progress, even if it feels like life is getting in the way all the time. Because that's the way life is. It's always going to get in the way. We wouldn't have anything to document if it wasn't, right? All right. So that's the victory section. And that concludes the end of the Scrapbooker's journal section. So this is the section that you're going to be kind of hanging out in the most in your workbook. And then, of course, you'll revisit it once a season. And then at the end, we have this thing called the Anytime Audit. This is a tool that I want you to use if you're feeling stuck or frustrated. And it helps you kind of jump in to take stock and help you find some victories that you can celebrate. Even attending this webinar is a victory. Showing up for a chat is a victory. Watching a video that you paid for is a victory. So you are moving forward even if it doesn't always feel like it. And then we're going to figure out what's exciting you right now and what's challenging you right now. And how can we work through that to leverage what's exciting you and jump around what's challenging you. So you can list some options here for reducing the impact of that challenge. And then we're going to actually talk about life again. So what's going on in your life? Maybe that's the challenge and you didn't even think about that. Maybe it's not about your scrapbooking. Maybe it's about what's going on in life. That happens a lot. So then how can we be more gentle with ourselves? How can we give ourselves grace and permission to do things our own way, to let go of expectations? And then, of course, what are your next 3 action items? Because so often when we feel overwhelmed, what we need is to have someone have this conversation with us. Okay, what's going on? What can we try? And then what's next? What are the 3 next things that I need to do so that I can stop feeling frustrated and overwhelmed? And so that's the Anytime Audit section. And I hope you guys really, really like that because I think it's going to be the one thing next year that you're so glad you did when that moment comes where you really need it. And then we have a few notes pages here at the back of the workbook in case you want to add some other things. That is the Scrapbook Your Way workbook. I'm super, super proud of this. I'm so glad that we made it to this point. For you guys who've been around for a while, you know that these exercises, they're not all new. These are our time-tested, tried and true simple scrapper exercises. And I wanted to put these in a format that would really be practical for our larger community so everyone can feel like that you can scrapbook your way. All right, let's go back to my face here. Then we'll turn off that other camera. We don't need to see that anymore. Okay. So, any more questions here? Maybe I can find my notes. So, how to get started? Download the workbook. It's free. Start using it in a Google Doc if that is your preferred format. Those choices are up to you. Or if you love printed things and you like this size and you just want someone to send you something that's special, then pre-order your workbook. And you can do all of that at simplescrapper.com/workbook. I'm so excited to be revisiting this with you guys once a season so that we can talk about how this workbook really works for you and to see how it's intersecting in different parts of your life, to see how you're merging it with your planner, to see if having this clarity about what it is that's important to you helped you schedule more time for your scrapbooking and make it more of a priority, or at least the right priority in your life right now. All right, so Audie says that I'm beginning to think I need to rethink my plan, that maybe she was being a little too ambitious. So, that happens a lot because we can see an end result, maybe just the flicker of it. We know what we want to get to, and maybe we find an example. But is that example going to line up with the styles and the formats that you really like, the time that you have, the energy you have to put into it? Maybe, maybe not. And this workbook will help you figure that out, help you think through what works best for you on a bigger scale and applying that to everything new that you do so that you are making great decisions all throughout the year. Okie dokie. Any final questions for me here? Again, free shipping in the United States. Super happy to be able to do that for you guys. It'll come in a completely lay flat mailer, so no bending possible. All right. Okay, if you do have more questions, please leave them as a comment to the video recording below, whether you're watching live or you're watching for the first time in the replay. I will be happy to answer your questions there so that you can get your question answered. And of course, we'll be talking about this for the entire year and hopefully well into the future, because I think this is really going to be a tool that helps a lot of scrapbookers find their way in this hobby. And I am so honored to be along for the journey with all of you. Again, my name is Jennifer Wilson, and I am your guide here at Simple Scrapper. I will see you guys again soon.